to the Mail here, and headline, well, they're claiming it as an exclusive. Ukrainians take revenge.
This is a this is an interesting story, Mike, and it's very disturbing. You're starting to see a level of unhinged, almost fanatical propaganda coming out of some of these papers. And we've seen different kinds of propaganda. The jingoism, promoting the wars and so forth. This is something else. This is reaching a kind of new level. They're kind of interceding here into a civil war and taking very, very partisan rhetoric and kind of almost making it inflammatory. And look at what it says. This is the splash page of the Mail yesterday and this morning. We're hunting them down and shooting them like pigs. How Ukrainians are taking brutal revenge against dozens of collaborators who have betrayed their neighbors and country to the Russians. So they're using the term collaborator, traitor, using it in a kind of pedestrian way. Let's take a close headline up so people can see that. And then over here, this is the article itself. And, the bullet points here are, we'll scroll down this article. I mean, take a look at this thing. So they're basically highlighting and featuring a couple of local people in these regions where Russia has retreated and making them sort of an example out of them. These are people, this gentleman here, I'll show you him in a minute. He died in a car bomb. So they're basically promoting terrorist attacks and reprisals by, quote, resistance fighters against local people who they deem to be collaborators. Now, this is all done very extrajudiciously, okay? So Ukraine's opened up all these cases of 1,300 something suspects, 450 prosecutions. I mean, that number is just going to get bigger and bigger. But that's basically the gist of this. And go on to the next image here. And here's one of the gentlemen here. Recent fatalities include Ivan Shushko, a wedding toastmaster, according to them, appointed mayor of a town in the Zaporizhia region, who died in August after his car was blown up. So the Mail's kind of glorifying this as a valiant act of reprisal by the brave Ukrainian resistance, or this could be the Azov battalion. Who knows? They're being very, very a little bit vague on who the actual perpetrators are. And so I looked at this, and we'll go back here. I looked at this and I thought, well, who's the author of this? And I saw the name Ian Burrell, and I thought to myself, that name looks really familiar. Who is this Ian Burrell? And just remember a couple of years ago. So this is a hired gun. This is a hired gun by the British establishment to come in, and he's an expert on sort of hamming up massacres and torture. So what else? What's his past? Oh yeah, that's right. 2017. He's the brains behind the, quote, Assad files. And if you want to see a great piece of fantasy fiction, look no further than this story. And this got top billing. He chalked up a couple more journalism awards for this. There he is, standing very pensive with the arms crossed in a secret location somewhere in Central Europe with 800,000 documents smuggled out of Syria with threats of the life of the people, brave people smuggling them out. And this all supposedly documents Assad torture. Okay. And the Central European secret location, I'm guessing now it probably was Ukraine. But anyway, we'll get more on that later. But that's Ian Burrell. So he's a hired gun for the establishment. And if you want to look at the details of that in fine detail, you go here to Monitor on Massacre Marketing. This is Adam Larson, I think Petri Krohn, a couple of great activist bloggers that did a lot of great work on Syria. You'll see the details of the, quote, Assad files here. They just kind of rev it up. They did every few months with the Syrian conflict. So that's the guy behind this story. So this is absolute 100% propaganda. Now take a look at this. This is what was in the Mail. You have to read it to believe it, basically. This is what it's saying. Kiev has already opened 1,309 suspected investigations into suspected traitors and launched 450 prosecutions of collaborators. There's two words there, accused of betraying their own nation and neighbors. Others are being tracked down and slaughtered by resistance fighters, again, glorified in the Daily Mail. And a list was passed to this newspaper by a Kiev government source, anonymous source, identifying 29 such retribution killings, extrajudicious assassinations, etc. 13 assassinations. And here's the bottom bit, which I think is quite telling. A hunt has been declared on collaborators, and their life is not protected by the law, said Anton Gurashenko, an advisor to Zelensky's interior minister. Our intelligence services are eliminating them, shooting them like pigs. So he's admitting there that this is being done outside of the law. So you see the gaslighting here by the Mail and Ian Burrell, the professional propagandist. It's all about the mass torture that Russians are doing, these torture programs in basements in these new liberated areas, these villages that around Kharkiv that Ukraine has recently liberated, so to speak. And they're saying, oh, all these torture programs and mock assassinations by the Russians, how cruel they are. And at the same time, in the same article, they're basically green lighting, just willy nilly going and doing retribution killings and hunting and shooting people like pigs. So this is an incredible, I mean, this is like next level propaganda. And for this to be done in a British daily newspaper and nobody's batting an eyelid about it. I mean, every mainstream media outlet should be pulling this up and saying, you guys are kind of beyond the pale here. And Ian Burrell will probably win a journalism award for this too. I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts on this? Because I find this to be just completely out of bounds. But then again, I'm just one man with one opinion.
Vanessa.
Yeah, I mean, I put this out on Twitter yesterday. I mean, it's an absolutely appalling, abhorrent normalization of Nazism. But we're also seeing it across the board. We're seeing the Sun newspaper literally advocating wanted posters for Putin and lobbying for his assassination. We're seeing images in the New York Times of Azov battalion fighters hugging their wives. So this humanization of people that are not human and haven't been human, since they conducted an ethnic cleansing program against the eastern Ukrainians in Donbass that have now just made the decision to accede to Russia. And also not forgetting the Azov battalion photographer, who very much like the Noral Denzinki member, the terrorist group funded by the United States, who beheaded the child in Aleppo in July 2016, being given the Getty Award for photography. Now we're seeing the Azov battalion photographer also given the Getty Award for his photojournalism in the Azov style plant in Mariupol. So, yeah, what we're saying is a continuation of what we saw in Syria, which was the normalization of terrorism. Now we're seeing the really terrifying, for me, normalization of Nazism and fascism.
Ian.
Yeah, and it's a nexus, isn't it, between the media and the political class as well, because you've got people like Lindsey Graham openly calling for the assassination of a foreign leader, Putin in this case. So there is this the othering of other people is a two-way street for these people. They are quite happy to exploit it if it suits their ends, but are quite equally willing to complain about it if it doesn't suit their objectives. So it's just pure Machiavellian, nasty politics, and it's going to go beyond. I suggest it's going to go beyond the othering of a people, as we've seen with in the terms of calling Russians orcs, or perhaps Putin calling us Anglo-Saxons and speaking about the world in that sense. This othering is happening everywhere, and it's being directed towards people, for example, who are just questioning things like vaccines, who are now being called refuseniks and baby killers. And this is a trend that is happening globally, and it is very, very worrying.
It is indeed. Okay, Patrick, but the question then is... yeah, sorry, go ahead.
One final comment. just quickly, I just want to put this idea out. Imagine how this looks to Ukrainian, neo-Nazis or Azov battalions who are hunting down Russian-speaking people in some of these areas. What do they think? They see the British establishment basically giving them a green light to go and just start slaughtering people. I mean, is there any other way that you can read this? This Mail article just screams of that. So they've got the endorsement of the British establishment and the Western media. They're just going to go ahead and keep doing what they're doing in the most violent way. It's really disgusting. Where are the questions in Parliament on this? This is just crazy.
Indeed. But calls for